Welcome once again to the What It Takes Radio Company, and we are going through the Days of Awe, a celebration and a commemoration. And on this final day of awe, this day which is Yom Kippur, and I've asked my good friend who has great wisdom and insight about the tradition and the situation that we are in today. Let's talk about that together. Greetings once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stan, and we are here with the program Interesting Ideas. We're here to help you live better now with good ideas, hopefully interesting ideas, maybe inspiring ideas. And we've had a special serial going on in which we have been talking about the Days of Awe, which of course begins with the Rosh Hashanah celebration, the Jewish New Year, and 10 days in which we're supposed to take time for reflection and contemplation and decide how we can live better through the year. And this brings us to the final day, which is the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, one of the highest, perhaps the highest in the Jewish festival, holy days. And so this is in honor of Yom Kippur. And I've invited a good friend and colleague, Steve Lear, to help us have some thoughts and observations on Yom Kippur. So, Steve, welcome to the program.
Dan, such a pleasure. And let me begin this because on Rosh Hashanah, we're supposed to go to the people that we may have sinned against.
Yes.
And ask for forgiveness. So allow me, because I think the sin that I may have done to you is simply not pay enough attention or dismiss your intelligence. And that is the sin that I believe that I have portrayed over the last year. So to start this off, I need to ask for your forgiveness for that type of behavior.
Well, you are more than forgiven. And please forgive me if there's anything in my way that I may have wasted some of your time in doing some of those things.
You know what? I think that's a actual perfect sin that happened, and I appreciate so much, and I totally forgive you for that.
Thank you. And it is wonderful to be forgiven. As one of my friends said, enjoy your forgiveness. And we will do that. Thank you, Steve. And I've always said for many years, even when we were not working together, whenever something happened within the Jewish world or state of Israel, I often would say to my wife, I wonder what Steve Lear would say about this situation, because I knew you have some unique insights, and I'll compliment you on that, not only on the Jewish tradition, the Jewish situation, but of course with the state of Israel. And so I'm very honored that on this final program in the Days of Awe, that you are just here to share some of your life observations, right now observations, and perhaps some suggestions for us all as we go forward. You're on, my friend.
A number of things have happened to me. I've had some pretty wild experiences since Rosh Hashanah. One, I got in a pretty big fight with my family. And part of it is because of the conflict that's going on within the Jewish community. And I'll explain that. The second is I did have a chance to talk to my friend who is involved with the Harvard negotiation program. And for 9 years now, almost 10 years, he's been working on building platforms where Palestinians, Israeli, and embassy workers can meet and create cohorts to advance their interactions and their understanding of each other. It's really fascinating. It's for people under the age of 45, and they go through a 9-month certification program to be able to negotiate, and they're all within the governments of both the Palestinians and the Israelis. So what they're trying to do is get ready for when the window does open, where there could actually be discussions. So let me explain to you what happened in my family. Everybody in my family is pro-Israel. Okay? So there's nobody in my family that is anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian. They all understand the history and the stories. But what occurred, and I don't know if this is right or not, is a lot of people are talking as if Israel is to blame for the problems that are going on, or at least 50% to be responsible for the problems that are going on. And that is being demonstrated why it's okay to be anti-Semitic, because Israel deserves it because they're causing so many problems. And I pushed back and I said, no, I'm at a place where 75% of the responsibility for the problems we have today are the Persian world, the Arab fanatical world, not the moderates, but the fanatical arm represented by Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis and that whole group of people with the backing of Iran. So I recently wrote an article that sequence matters. And I'm very sensitive, maybe too sensitive, to what do people start out the conversation with? Do they start the conversation as Netanyahu is a really mean and bad guy? Or do they start the conversation with, what Hamas did and what Hezbollah has been trying to do, and with the Iranians basically saying their goal is to eliminate the state of Israel? Is that the first thing that should be coming out of people's mouths? Or should it be Netanyahu is really being very cruel and mean, and that's who's responsible?
That's one interesting statement for you to say is, yes, what is the first statement? That's a good way to start.
Oh my gosh, it is. Yes. I've written an article about sequence matters. I'll send it to you, Stan. So it's something that you could add to, the days of awe, anything of that sort. But
I will look forward to that.
Nobody's talking about that. And I'll give you a perfect example. And it was interesting because Vice President Harris, when she first talked about this issue, she said there needs to be a ceasefire and the hostages need to be released. Now, if you would have reversed it and said the hostages need to be released and there needs to be a ceasefire, what would you think? Yes,
I see the big difference.
It's a huge difference.
Yes.
So I just, anybody who's in any kind of leadership position, I'm really crossing my fingers that you will take sequence into matter as you talk about things. Because everybody thinks linear. Not everybody, but the vast majority of people think linear. What's first, if it's on a piece of paper, if you're talking, okay, that must be the priority. That must be the thing that has to happen. And, as I've gone through Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, I've really come to a conclusion that this is an idea that's not being presented enough. And it affects personal relationships. It affects global relationships. It needs to be incorporated into our lives. Okay, what was the other question? Because you just said, go ahead, Steve, babble.
Well, okay, now, what do we do now? Where we are now at this situation where it appears that the people of Israel, at least in their leadership, has said, we're going for the win. Not necessarily to destroy Arab people or Arab nations, but we're going for the win in the war. And of course, the other side saying, whatever they're saying is, what can we do now as we go forward? Either side, or particularly from the Jewish side, maybe the American or other sides, where would you go now?
This is a moment in time that I think will be a great learning experience for society going forward. And it will be looked upon 10 years from now as, wow, what decisions did we make, and what was the messages, and how did it really affect where we are today? Okay, we have to embrace and love democracy. We have to recognize it is an ugly, ugly way of governing, except it oftentimes brings out the very best of people on a long-term basis.
Okay.
Okay? So that's one aspect that we have to embrace. Societies that are built on monarchs or
Tyranny, authoritarian, yeah.
yes, it's not good for the people. Democracy with some kindness and understanding is really a beautiful way to manage a society and government. The next thing that has to occur, and this was, again, I just got off a conversation with a friend of mine who lives in Tel Aviv. And I asked him, I said, okay, what do you want me to say to Americans? Okay. I mean, we're talking 20 minutes ago.
Okay, good. Right now. Yes.
And he turned to me and he said, and he's a liberal left winger. And he said, I'm getting a little frustrated with the American Jewish community in that they're just not understanding the ramifications of what they're trying to promote. He says they're not taking into context what is occurring. So he was asking me to actually turn to the progressive left-wing aspects of the American Jewish society and say, you really got to think about what you're doing here. Because, and this is an example, Stan, all the hostages, how many countries are represented by those hostages? How many countries? 14.
That's what I thought it was. It wasn't just one or two or three.
Right. There's 14 different. Are there Arabs in there? Yeah. Are there Christians? Are there Jews? Are there Israelis? It is a splattering. So part of this moment in time is that this isn't just about Hamas and Israel. That's not what it's totally about. It's about authoritative. It's about Iran deciding that everybody really needs to be Muslim, and it needs to be a certain kind of Muslim. And I got to tell you, I am fascinated by the Muslim religion. I think Muhammad did a very interesting job of simplifying a relationship with God and did promote many great ideas. I think he's like every leader out there. You get so frustrated with the people who disagree with you. And then what happens is you get angry and then you piss people off. So there's a common trend that I think occurs. I think Moses had that issue. I think Jesus had that issue. I think Muhammad had that issue. It's like, okay, if you really want to be a leader, you better expect that you're going to be not treated very well at some point in time.
Yes. I oftentimes say to my Christian friends, we said, do you realize how many times Jesus is going, come on, what's it going to take for you guys to get it?
Right. I mean, so where was I, Stan?
Well, okay, we move forward from the hostage situation. That did give us a picture of the tyranny, the authoritarians, the wrong succession. And so we're at this point saying, okay, where can we make any movement? Where can we do anything personally, professionally, thoughtfully, prayerfully that might lead to something better? The
Okay.
killing will stop and the capturing will stop, and hopefully the talking will begin again.
But if I was in the Middle East and in the middle of this and actually had some credibility, I would turn to the enemies of Israel who have this desire to destroy, not win, destroy.
That's right. They want to destroy.
Okay. And ask them to stop that and just say, okay, we're not going to go down that path anymore. We're going to try and figure out and accept you.
Yes.
Okay? So that would be the first step. The second step is that Israel needs to get prepared that if that comes out of leadership from other parts of the region, it needs to put its hand out and be there to help in any kind of manner.
Okay.
I'm so proud of what the world did after World War II because they knew they made a huge mistake after World War I. And to actually bring the Japanese and the Germans back into society and help them, move forward was inspirational. Inspiring.
It was historical brilliance.
Yes.
Very unusual.
Okay. So that's what Israel and America need to be prepared is we are here to help. We will help. We'll help with time. We'll help with emotion. We'll help with money. We'll help with those things. But you have to say Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state.
Yes.
As a Jewish state. Now, Stan, you know this, but many of your listeners might not. In the Jewish state, how many Muslim Arabs and Christian Arabs are there?
There's a lot. I don't know exact numbers.
24%. And
Is it that high?
Yeah. It's been that way since the founding of the state of Israel. It's 24% of the population is Arab and Christian, Muslim, Christian Arabs.
I know. I know Arab Christians in Israel.
Right, but there's Muslims in there too.
There are Muslims in there too. Yes.
Right. So Israel looks like America. It's Jewish rather than Christian.
Right.
And we Americans, especially we Christian Americans or Christian Americans, need to take some pride that you've actually advanced to more of an acceptance. Now, if we go backwards and we don't have that acceptance, then we could be in trouble once again.
Yes.
But that's what Israel needs to do. That's the second thing. First thing is that the enemy needs to stop. They need to stop the rhetoric and they need to stop the action. And if they sit there and tell me, no, Israel needs to stop, I said, no, I'm sorry. You need to stop. It's sequence. You stop, and then you'll see what Israel does. And if Israel doesn't do what you want, well, then you start it up again.
Yeah.
But you're expecting Israel to stop, and no, we're there. All right. The other story I wanted to just bring up about the days of awe is what I read on the days of awe.
Okay.
It's Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
And what Viktor Frankl, he this is what I learned from this year's reading. He had a chance to leave Austria. He decided not to because his parents reminded him of a great Jewish mitzvah, which was to honor your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided he was going to stay in Austria to protect his parents.
Yes.
He ended up spending 3 to 4 years in concentration camps.
Yes.
Now, he was a psychiatrist.
Yes.
A
Yes.
psychiatrist. And he walked into the concentration camps with a manuscript under his coat that was his theory called logotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And they made him strip down, cut all of his hair on all of his body. So you have to imagine there's 100 people at this one time, and they're completely naked, no hair, no nothing, no clothes. They're just naked, and you can't tell the difference between one or the other. And then he talks about, the Nazis. They didn't use names; they used numbers, and that was to dehumanize the whole experience. So he used his experience in the concentration camps to advance his theory. And his theory revolved around 3 aspects of life that would give you meaning. 1, work. 2, love. 3, your ability to counter suffering.
Yes.
Those were the 3 categories of where meaning can come from. It's all about looking forward. It's all about, well, what's your purpose? You have to remember the past, but you have to spend more time and energy finding meaning and looking forward.
Yes.
And that's the other thing I wanted your readers or your listeners to know, is it's a tremendous book to read at the Days of Awe.
I would say an amen to that. One of the more significant books in the human situation and human condition. And the third one is particularly hard to understand, that sometimes in suffering, we do remember the story of the chosen, where the rabbi said that he had to make sure that his brilliant son suffered something so that he would be a man of compassion as well as a man of righteousness. And wouldn't that be a wonderful compendium to say, God, make me a righteous man, a righteous woman, but also give me a heart like you have, a heart of goodness and caring. Yeah.
Let me finish.
Bingo.
Let me finish with a commercial.
Sure.
I've known Stan Husted for 40 years. He's a little bizarre, but he is unbelievably caring, and he's actually very self-aware now that the way he works can be very positive and very disruptive as well. The listeners here need to understand that if you're looking for somebody who will brainstorm with you, who will, invent things, he doesn't need a ton of information, even though he studies a lot and he knows he knows a little about a lot of things. And he's outrageously flexible. He's very adaptable. So I urge anybody who's listening to this, Dan can't do everything for anybody who wants to disseminate information, but he's really good at helping you figure out what it is that you might want to say and come up with it. I will tell you, he will have 7 ideas, and 5 of them will possibly be poor, and 2 of them could be outstanding. So I just wanted to put a plug in for you, because I hope people hear, if you're like me, somebody who wants to disseminate your experiences and your wisdom, Stan's a good person to visit with.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful. Right now, I know when my wife sees this, she's going to be looking at me and says, "He got you, doesn't he?" Thank you so very much. And I will just simply say this is Steve brings not only to his community, but he is a man who not only is a thinker, and I think he's actually going to be a real thought leader. He'll be another Peter Kostenbaum, another Jacob Needleman, some of these great Jewish philosopher counselors. And so I really ask you to consider him not only as a Jewish man who is a bit of an activist, but he is also a man who's very accomplished in understanding money, the markets, and the meaning of life.
Thank you, Stan.
And he'll come back to you and he'll have ways for you to live a better life. And that's what we want to do. That's what, next year in Jerusalem, maybe not, but next year somewhere will be better. Best and blessings to us all.
Too.
Shalom.
Stan. Shalom.